Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Patients at HSHS and Prevea now have access to their health records for the first time since a cyber attack last month.
This announcement comes today as many patients and employees still wonder what, if any, personal information was compromised. Jason Zimmerman has been looking into this. He's live in Green Bay with a first alert update tonight. Jason.
Bill, the health organizations, which include HSHS, St. Vincent Hospital in Green Bay, have yet to answer that question or provide us with an on-camera interview since the cyber attack. However, today, some good news for patients when it comes to accessing their own data. For the first time since a cyber attack last month, patients at HSHS and Prevea Health now have access to MyChart and MyPrevea, which can be used for reviewing lab results and making appointments. A local cybersecurity expert says it's a positive sign.
Getting that MyChart system back up is critical for patient care. And so that, I think, from a patient care standpoint, is really, really good.
Although MyChart and MyPrevea were restored, patients are still encouraged to call their provider's office if they need urgent assistance instead of sending a message through the portal. In a joint statement, the organizations wrote, "We will respond to patient messages as quickly as possible, and we encourage patients to reach out to their provider's office to speak with a member of their healthcare team should they require urgent assistance," end quote. However, what hasn't been determined is whether any critical personal data from former or current patients and employees may have landed in the hands of a hacker.
If that's been compromised, people need to take action. They really should freeze their credit, and they have to freeze it with all three of the credit reporting bureaus.
The possibility of a cyber attack is something experts say every business and organization should be concerned about.
It's not a matter of if, but probably a matter of when. I think there's so many complex systems out there, and the hackers just need one opening.
HSHS and Prevea have both said they will notify patients if it's determined that their personal information has been compromised. They're also working with law enforcement right now on this investigation. Reporting live in Green Bay, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.